Hi, I'm Bridget Cook, and I'm delighted to bring you the following program, which is called Writing the Story That You Were Destined to Write. 7 juicy things you must know about getting published in 2014. So I'm using all the skills I've gained through the years in writing as a national best-selling author and transformational speaker, but all of the skills that I've gained in writing some pretty phenomenal stories about some very phenomenal people. So, how many people have told you that you have an extraordinary story and that you should write a book? Perhaps you've even started on this writer's journey to become a published author, but like millions of others, you've gotten stuck in the mire along the way. Well, you're not the only one. Did you know that really as many as 9 out of 10 people want to write a story, want to write a book, a manuscript, but only 2% ever will? That is really sad. When you think about that, 9 out of 10, so 90% of our population, but only 2% ever will. So let me just ask you a question. I love this picture. Have you ever sat at the computer and stared at the screen for hours? Has the inner critic burned holes in every page and chapter you've ever tried to write? And have you told yourself for the last year, 2 years, even 3 years, this is the year I'm going to write my story? This is the year I write my book, only to realize months or years later that you just put it on the back burner or you gave up on it entirely. It happens all too often, but I can tell you this, I do know how to break through those crazy writer's blocks to help you get started and to finish and to publish your book, but not just any book. Especially with the advent of self-publishing, more people can get their book out more quickly, easily, and less expensively than ever before. But some of them honestly get a little embarrassed a couple of years down the road because of the lack of quality. If you're going to put serious effort towards this thing, the book that you were destined to write, it should have the power to touch someone's life halfway around the world today, and just as powerfully touch your grandchildren's lives 50 years from now. And in the meantime, it better be opening a lot of incredible doors. So I would like you to know that you have the power to be among those 2% that successfully write and publish their story. How do I know? Well, if you're watching this video, you have already been willing to invest some time and perhaps some resources on yourself, and that right there is a quality that a writer, a successful writer, must have: the ability to invest in yourself and to create a desired outcome. So really, there are 7 juicy things that you need to ask yourself and get genuine answers for in order to start this successful quest, and know that you can and will finish. But it takes heartfelt honesty from you. The first question being, do I want to write my book? Or am I committed to finishing this project? I invite you to take a look at the word want. Again, 90% of the population wants to write a book, but only 2% ever will. Want is a precarious word, and in the human mind, wanting something leaves you with more wanting. There is no definitive getting. So I invite you to shift your perception and thinking from more, oh, I want to write my story, to I get to write my story. In fact, I am writing my story in 2014. Do you see how powerful that is? And quite a shift from the wanting. This I have seen with many of my clients, my writers' clients, and all of my wannabe clients. One thing that many people get caught up in their writing is they think that they simply don't have enough time for it. We say, am I really committed? Do I want to do this? Or am I really going to do it? But we worry about the time. I'm one that, just like you, leads a busy life. And oftentimes we have the false perception that there's just no time for us to fit it in. But take a look at this. The average American spends 34 hours watching TV. Holy cow, what a horror. Now that's what I call a tragedy. 34 hours a week. I'm not saying that you should cloister yourself away from the rest of society to write. Quite the opposite. It's just, when you think about the quality of television versus what juicy things you may be able to create, I just invite you to take back the control of your life. Let someone else snooze at the television and create your life being just a little juicier. I love this quote by Bruce Barton where he says, Nothing splendid has ever been achieved except by those who dared believe that something inside of them was superior to circumstance. My friends, you are far superior to circumstances. You do have an extraordinary message, but you've got to do more than just want it to be written. So what wanting writers will do is say, I want to write sometime this week. But today is dance practice for the girls and soccer for the boys, and tonight is the blacklist. And maybe Wednesday or Thursday I can squeeze in an hour, but then there's Dancing with the Stars and The Bachelorette, and got to pick up the girls, and then America's Got Talent and Pretty Little Liars. You get my drift. Committing is putting it in your schedule. Committing is going to your planner and making an appointment with yourself. Pick up your phone, go to your computer, open up that planner, and write it down now. There is great power in taking action, and I can vouch for that. Commitment is the magic for manifesting your dreams. So I'm going to share with you one of my favorite quotes, and this has been attributed to Goethe. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. For some of you, you cannot go through another year and not get your story out on paper. Maybe you have a relative that you love dearly who's starting to show major symptoms of Alzheimer's or other illnesses, and you know that this is the only time that you're going to have to get that story. They say that when a family member dies, that a library is burning. If your library is burning, you know that it is time to get your book out this year. Perhaps like many entrepreneurs, you know that this is finally the year to tell your story. It's time to build yourself as a time to build your credibility as an expert in whatever field that is. It's time to build your platform. It's time to get those speaking gigs that you have been wanting. And it's time for your clients to have something tangible about you that they can read, that they can really get to know who you are and what you stand for and what the benefits will be for working with you. If that's true, then it's time to make that commitment to yourself and to your story. While I was working as a co-author on my latest release, which eventually hit the New York Times bestseller, actually recently, my co-author and I had made a commitment to rise at 4 a.m. in the morning and work until 7:30 a.m. every day. See, we were both single moms at the time. We had to do whatever it took to get the book done and not take time from our family's very hectic schedules with children. I was running a trucking company and a phone book for some of that time just to make ends meet. But the story I was working on was such a deep and inspiring message with her, and we knew that it was needed in a hungry world. So we committed, we wrote it down, and we went to town. And yes, we did bring that story out to a hungry world. So it brings me to question number 2 that you get to ask yourself, and that is, am I clear and passionate about my message? Not only does writing take that commitment, as we talked about, but time, energy, and resources for an extended period of time. But more importantly, it takes passion. Passion is one of those things that can come and go like a firework, but it is the long extended passion that will make it easier for you to, from time to time, burn the midnight oil and still easily handle everything else that you've got to get done for you and your family. Passion creates emotion, energy, drive, and purpose. And you need passion for longer extended projects like a book. But you also need to know what your message is, and it has to be so clearly outlined. So you have to be passionate about being clear about your message. So whether it's fiction or nonfiction, every great story has a moral or a message. And the question to ask yourself is, what is yours? It must be a message that moves your blood so that your passion can come out onto the paper. It must be a message that gives you butterflies every time you think about it. Not just because of the hard stuff, but because of the juicy good stuff, that which makes the world go round and gets you excited to get up in the morning. When you are filled with that much passion about your message, it will come across on the pages of your book, and your readers will get it, and believe me, they will get you. Always remember that you are the message of your book. So what is it that you live and breathe? If you're a closet romance writer, people might not ever know what it is that motivates you, but you do. And when you're published, they certainly will. If your message is inspirational in the Gandhi sense of be the change you want to see in the world, then what is that change? What is it that keeps you up at night wanting to share it so bad? What is it that makes you pee your pants because you want to share it so bad? What makes your pulse quicken and your blood move? What have you dedicated your life to that has changed you, that has changed your family, that is changing your community, and that you would like to bring out to change the world? That is your message. Make it mighty. If you are passionate about your mighty message, I promise you your readers will too, as long as it is well written. So, that being another point, I need to ask you, are you willing to be vulnerable on paper? You need to ask that question of yourself, because it's not just a question to those who are writing biographies. Even if you're writing a vampire fiction novel, what you put on the page is truly a reflection of you. Yeah, we'll just say that much. But it is, it's a reflection of your imagination. It's a reflection of your passion. It's a reflection of your creativity. And there are two parts to this question, because the first that you have to ask yourself is, am I willing to fillet myself like a fish and put it out there, raw flesh and bones and everything for others to see? Am I willing to be genuine and authentic and vulnerable? Because you see, the world is done with gurus. We're tired of gurus and know-it-alls, especially in business and certain other forms. We want someone who can be real with us and to learn from us that there is some divine plan for our humanness or some other plan for our humanness, and that, yes, we can make mistakes and we can get back up and we can begin a new day. And then the second part is to ask yourself, am I willing to be open to take constructive criticism from other writers or from my editors? Am I willing to write and write and write, and then rewrite and rewrite and rewrite? The very best writers are those who are open to that constructive criticism, because they're not egotistically tied to what is written on the page. They know their story is going to come out, but they're willing to be open to learn even better ways of doing it. So I can tell you that the best writers will write and write and write, and the most exceptional ones will rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, period. So this might all sound a little scary. Anais Nin, I love how that author says, life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Sometimes all you need to remember is precisely whose life you're going to touch with your story. Which brings us to the next point, and that is, who exactly am I writing this book for? Who is my specific reader? So honestly, if you pay attention to any one thing that I have to teach you, this is the one that will take you far. Marketers call this writing to your avatar. This is more important than you might realize. You want to attract as many readers as possible in your book, right? Your message has the ability to change lives, but you need to be specific. Whose lives are you touching? It's important to know, who are you writing to? Who are you giving hope and inspiration to? Who are you willing to go through all of this for? Is it the besieged and stressful business owner who can't see light at the end of the tunnel? Is it the anxious couple who is wishing to make the best decision on their refinancing so they don't throw away their life's investment? Is it a drug-addicted teenager who thinks there is absolutely no way out? Is it the mother who struggles with a Down syndrome child and just wants to know she's not alone? As much as we want to write for the world, you are more effective when you get clear on who you are really touching. Your mighty message is not meant to reach every person, but I will tell you this. It is meant to reach many specific people who are waiting for it. What do they look like? How old are they? Are they male or female? How much money do they make? What do you think is their worst fear? What keeps them away uh, with inspiration or desperation? What is their secret dream? Get clear, go deep, be real, and you will find a clear and direct path to reach them, because these are the people you will market to when you have a book. And please note, please note that very few authors ever become wealthy from publishing their book. Most will sell 100 to 200 books tops for the lifetime of their book. It just is what it is. But what I encourage you to do is not to make it about the number of sales, and your perception will shift. When TJ Lydon and I wrote our story, Skinhead Confessions, From Hate to Hope, we thought about the young men and women in gangs that could be changed from his story. And it has changed the lives of young men and women in prison and older, and gotten kids out of gangs. When Melissa Moore and I wrote national best-selling Shattered Silence, the untold story of a serial killer's daughter, we did not yet know it was going to be showcased on Oprah and Good Morning America and in People magazine. But we did know that we wanted to reach thousands of family members who were quietly suffering because they loved someone who had committed a heinous crime. And those quiet sufferers deserved to know that they could heal and eventually move on to a joyful life. Melissa and I both gain great satisfaction knowing that lives have been deeply touched by this story. And we've started many on a path to healing, and the book is actually being used in counseling centers and by therapists worldwide. When Rebecca Musser and I wrote our New York Times bestseller, The Witness Wore Red, about the 19th wife who brought polygamous cult leaders to justice, we didn't know that her book and her life would be featured on a 2-hour Dateline special, or the Today Show, or be translated into other languages, or be on radio worldwide. We knew we wanted to touch the hearts and souls of her people that were cloistered in a community that had been ruled by the iron fist of Warren Jeffs and under the nose of an entire nation. We wanted to touch any woman who has had any part of her enslaved, and for her to know that she can claim her power and live a life of incredible meaning, and that even though it takes a lot of courage, one person can really make a world of difference. So, do you see? Do you see why your message needs to reach your avatar? And so I just ask you, who are you going to touch and how? And it leads me to my next juicy question, and that is, you need to ask yourself, what is my genre? Now, this one often trips people up, so I'm going to be clear on this without going into too much detail. But first, you've got to decide if you're going to write fiction or nonfiction. Fiction, as you are aware of, is make-believe. It's truly entertaining. It's about facts and circumstances that could be based on truth, but not are all entirely true. It's based for entertainment. Nonfiction, however, is that which is true life accounting, has to be based on real facts, real circumstances, and needs to be able to be backed up with research. So that's the first thing, is to decide which way you're going to do that. There's all kinds of fiction genres: novels, poems, dramas, short stories, and novellas. And then if you're in English, they'll go into tragedies and comedies and tragicomedies and dramas, fairy tales, fantasies, horrors, humor, realistic fiction, science fiction. Your nonfiction story, if that's what you're writing, will fit within one of these common genres, and it's important for you to know what that is after you have determined your story, and I'll tell you about that in a little bit. If you are working on your own story, or a true story of someone else, you'll have autobiography or a biography, an essay, a narrative nonfiction, or a textbook. Okay, so those are the primary formations. And then, don't forget blogs and other venues that are more popular. Some people are putting entire books together from their blogs, but you're going to want to talk to me about that before you do that. And there's a really important reason behind that. All right, and I did tell you to decide on your story first. That's really important. Decide on your story first because that's what your passion is. And once you've decided on your story, it will be very easy to determine what are these other, or what are the genres that it could fit into, and then pick one. And when you pick that one, it's easier for you to decide, okay, well, the best selling ones, or the ones that are more effective or most effective for readers, are this number of words and this number of pages. And those are the ones that are doing quite well. Those are the ones that are going to reach my audience. For example, if you're looking at touching the life of a drug addicted teen and that particular story is meant just for them, you're not going to want a 500-page textbook type of book. It's not going to reach the teen. It may reach a clinical presenter who wants to assist the teen, but that teenager needs something more between 200 and 300 pages. And so you're going to have to determine the number of pages and make sure that it's readable, really readable to a teen. All right, now once you've decided on your story and once you've written your story, well, even before you've finished writing your story, you're going to want to know, how am I going to publish? Am I going to go to, there's 3 different major ways to publish. There's getting to be more, but these are still the 3 major ways: self-publishing, vanity press, and mainstream publishers. I spent an entire boot camp on this subject, but it's important for you, when you're beginning research on the subject, to decide what is best for you and to create that clear intention of which kind of publisher you're going to go with as you are working on your book. It's very important to note that the publishing industry is in a huge state of flux. So everything is changing. Just like computers, technology has made a huge impact on the publishing industry. And so every 6 months, the rules have changed and things are new. So I'm giving you pros and cons of each of these as they stand right now, but there are some dramatic changes going on in the publishing industry. And so even as you create your clear intention, continue to research as you're writing your book. So when you're done, you're up on the most important elements of how to publish the way that you've intended to publish. Okay, so let's go into some pros and cons. With self-publishing, you control the schedule. That's a big deal, especially if you're in a hurry. You control the costs and you control the number of pages. You control the quality to a point, and that's if you get a very good printer. You also control the profits based on your performance in marketing. For example, if you sell from the stage and you have bought your product at a certain cost, you can sell it for a higher cost without breaking the bank and get yourself a ton of followers. Or if you're talented, you can actually sell for a tidy profit, which is nice. So you can use those books, as some people do, for expensive business cards, or you can actually make a tidy profit. But you've also got to be well aware of what your costs are and make sure that you're taking care of things. And one thing people don't always realize is make sure you're keeping track of sales tax, because you will have to report that to the state and then pay taxes on that. All right. Now, the self-publishing cons is that you absorb all the cost of printing. You control the quality of the content. And I know I just said that on the pros, but this is where the pen meets the ink. If you don't have the eyes, or if you don't have others' eyes to see your work, provide feedback, correct your grammar and spelling, or help you with libel or slander issues, your book can come out with some very unprofessional mistakes, and perhaps even get you sued if you were not careful. The quality is completely determined by the company that you deal with, along with the format and artwork that you supply. Now, I've seen some stunningly well done self-published books. I have also seen a lot that leave a lot to be desired. 2 of my clients, at 2 drastically different times, ordered the first printing of their book, spent a pretty penny, only to find out that that the font was printed in 9 instead of 14. It was not the quality that they had requested or wanted, and they had to wait until these ones are all sold in order to order some more. Next point is that you do all of the marketing, no matter what. When you self-publish, This book is 100% in your hands. And although that can be a great thing if you're really talented at marketing, or you can pay a talented person to help you market it. All right, we're going to move on to Vanity Press. And Vanity Press, the pros of that is that they'll cover the cost of your printing to a point, and we'll get to that. They will do some limited marketing for you based on their sway in the marketplace, which varies from region to region and also genre to genre. Certain vanity presses work in a couple different genres and may have more specialties in one area than another. They generally have much better quality than self-publishing. Not always. It's something to watch for. Oh, sorry. There we go. And they often provide cover artwork artists, editors, and professional services. So you can purchase quantities of books for a discount. So when you sell, you can again make that profit. And another nice thing about vanity presses is that they are loyal to their authors. Now, if we move over into a vanity press con, you'll notice that while they cover the cost of your printing, you have to wait until they recoup costs before you get your royalties. You may have to subvert some of your wishes to what their VP's desire is for the book. For example, they may lengthen or shorten your manuscript. They may rework your message a little. They may change your title. If you're a strong writer, this really is not a bad thing. But if you want every sentence precisely your way, that can be really bad. That's when you want to self-publish, if you must control every aspect of it. But if you're open to perhaps doing something better, then this can be a way to go. Keep in mind, however, that vanity presses generally have a very limited marketing income. They will do the best they can, but the success of your book is 98% up to you. All right, let's move into mainstream publishers. And what you're going to want to know about this is that you're assigned a team of editors, copywriters, copy editors, and others who will make your book be the most professional it can be. You'll be amazed at the quality difference and in the final quality of your book. And depending on the size of the publisher, keep that in mind. Larger publishers have bigger clout and can create some fun publicity and exposure. With a really well-written book and story idea, you can make a decent advance on a book, especially the better known you are as a writer and the larger your following in your field. The cons are important to take note of though as well, because it's difficult to get into larger publishers, especially without an agent. Publishers now have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of manuscripts to sort through per year, some of them even per month. If your idea and your writing doesn't attract the editor's attention right away, your copy of your manuscript is bound for the circular file. However, there are those who have pressed forward without an agent and have actually done really well. But if you're going to do that, research and follow to the line item every detail of instructions that you're given. It's important. If you fail to do it, you're not going to be taken seriously. Now, if you're accepted by a larger publisher and you're given a large or larger advance, the publisher will need to recoup their costs before you get paid anything. That can be far in the future, and sometimes it can be never. If they take a risk on you and they put out all the effort towards publishing, marketing, well, you still have to market, but they put all that effort out, there are some books that have never recouped what they were given in advance. So just keep that in mind. And one thing to really remember is that few people, if ever, get rich off of their book, even with a large publisher. Gone are most of the multi-million-dollar advances. I'm just being open with you. Go for it. But keep the larger goal of reaching your avatar. When you have that in mind, I promise you that many, many doors will open. I have published through vanity presses and also now with an international publisher. They are markedly different experiences. I started with Vanity Press, and I'll be forever grateful that they took a major risk on my genre of books. For some reason, at first glance, people don't seem to think that, books about former skinheads or daughters of serial killers or, people who bring cultists down can be inspirational stories, and yet they are. So I'm very grateful to that small publisher that got me on the road to the books that I have written, and that they were able to take that risk. And actually, for those first two books, it has actually paid off well for them. I'm also delighted to work with a larger publisher now as a more established author. And what has made this journey even better are the incredible relationships that I've been blessed to develop. I am forever grateful. For what good is the destination if you end up alone? It's a wonderful journey to be on, and you can make some really incredible relationships. So, my last question for you is, what the heck are you waiting for? Ask yourself that right now. What the heck am I waiting for? Writing and publishing your book can be one of the most difficult, but one of the most rewarding experiences of your entire life. And from personal experience that I've had in working with other writers, I can tell you that finishing and publishing your book builds credibility. Credibility would be nice if I could say that. It brings credibility within you to yourself. It's like when you write a book and get it ready for publishing, there's something about you being able to say, guess what? I authored a book. Often this one shift can be just incredibly dramatically life-changing. It helps you to know that there's more things in life that you can tackle, that you can believe in yourself, that you can commit and take action and follow through to the end. Just as in the Goethe quote, all kinds of resources come into play that you can't even fathom right now. All kinds of doors will open. That's why so many people want to write a book, because they've seen it. They know friends, they know people who have written a book, and they've seen that it does open major doors. If you are now committing to write your book and you are answering your questions honestly, then you have the tools to get started. And that makes my heart sing. You see, I must tell you, when Melissa Moore and I took our book onto Oprah, I had over 200 people who asked if I would write their life stories. And I got to tell you, I was overwhelmed. As a single mom with three amazing, beautiful kids, and I was working from home and running a couple of businesses, and I didn't have the time or tools outlined to be able to help people. I started taking on Rebecca's story, but I couldn't take on 200 people's stories. Still, many of those stories kept me up at night because they were so worth telling. They were dramatic, they were life-changing, they were really, truly inspirational. And because of the journey that I'd been on with these other three amazing people, I recognized the healing that would take place if they just didn't just have the courage to put it on paper, but they had some tools. So right then and there, I promised myself that this next go round that I would be prepared. And that's why over the next, few years after Shattered Silence came out, I developed an incredible path to success for those who are committed to writing their book. You see, I believe in cutting corners. I think anybody who's been involved in business for a period of times knows that success leaves clues, and that there is such a thing as cutting that learning curve even in half, even larger. I started a company called Inspired Legacy LLC, and I have a dream team. And together we're reaching out to people who are ready to write their book. The reason I called it Inspired Legacy is that I believe when stories are transformative, they can outlive us and inspire generations of readers. I believe we all have a legacy. So I developed a start to finish inspired legacy method of writing the highest quality stories. This is what I teach. And I need to show you my little logo. Do you see the phoenix rising from the ashes? So the entire method is called the Inspired Legacy Method. And I offer those at my writers' retreats in a collaborative and awe-inspiring environment. And I just love looking at this picture because I love every single one of the individuals that came to our last retreat. Each one of them has an incredible and inspiring story, and I'm so grateful to be a part of that. I love those retreats where I get to spend one-on-one time with my writers. And it has made me realize, however, that often people just need something to get them jump started. Some people are afraid to come to my retreats because they're like, oh, I'm not far enough along in the process. And I have beginners writers through all the way through advanced that come to my retreats, but I wanted to create a tool that kind of helps the most common issues that writers face. And that is to have clarity and flow in their writing. So inside of my Inspired Legacy method, I've developed a fun core program where I teach writers how to use the gift of both sides of their brain, the critical and the creative. It's called Write Juicy, and it's not about the salacious details, it's about the delicious details of being human. There is a difference. And because it uses all the elements of being deliciously human, it makes a difference in other people's lives. And what it does is allows your reader to feel as if they are experiencing the story with you, which I love. E.L. Doctorow said, good writing is supposed to evoke sensation in the reader, not the fact that it is raining, but the feeling of being rained upon. Don't you love that picture? I love the energy of that little girl. She reminds me of one of those cartoon characters with the unicorn, and she goes, I love it. Anyway, I love this little girl. I love the juiciness of her, and that's what we capture on the page. It's an art. But if you learn how to use your Write Juicy tools, you can actually become what I call a master writer. I teach writers very quickly how to awaken both sides and honor both sides of their brain, the left brain and the right brain. The left brain is the analytical part. It's the one when you get going on some really juicy topic, it stops you right in the middle and says, hey, you misspelled that, you idiot. Or who do you think you are? You don't have any idea of what you're talking about. Or you couldn't write a grammatically correct sentence to save your life. Does that sound familiar? However, when you learn that there are actual gifts in the left brain, you realize that the left brain is actually quite brilliant. And when you master the tools to rein it in and let it do what it's good at, what it helps do is bring the reader along in your story. So you're not flying off in some fluffy, sugary words that the reader likes reading but doesn't understand where you're taking him or her. So, but also, you have to learn how to rein in this brain, this left brain, um, so that you can let your right brain take over from time to time. Your right brain is what allows you to use all of your creativity and all its natural juiciness, and it brings vibrancy, life, and energy to your writing. Nothing crushes creativity like the left brain run rampant. So I love this quote. Sally Kempton says, it's hard to fight an enemy who has outposts in your head. Master writers learn how to honor both sides of the brain, and they at first make them take turns. And then at certain points, you learn to bring them together and can you hear the angels sing? It's an amazing experience. It's an incredible tool. And because I've run into many writers that struggle with structuring their story without going off on tangents for days or months or years, which really does happen, or they feel like their story is dry and dull and lifeless, I've created a Write Juicy core training. It's called, oh, and I apologize, I missed this whole thing. I put this in at the end. These are the left brain functions and these are the right brain functions, but you'll be able to go back in this presentation and see. But I don't want to take too much time, but you want to see, this is a picture that I love because I love this man. Einstein was incredible, and this advertisement from Mercedes-Benz just so accurately depicts. We know Einstein was absolutely brilliant. He was a physicist who could play with numbers like nobody's business. But the fact was, he could play with numbers. He was very in touch with his inner child, as you can see. And so he was a master at being able to use both sides of the brain. He created a rich and full and vibrant life, full of dignity, respect, awards, but he lived and loved deeply. And that's what made him juicy. So for us to be able to live our lives in that way, I've created this tool for you, and it's called 3 Steps to Your Most Powerful Juicy Outline. It's 3 audio CDs, and then you also get an extra CD that has downloadable uh, templates. And on those templates, I have a left brain dry timeline for you to put all the important dates, a right brain juicy timeline that you incorporate together to create your most masterful outline. And this really works for most manuscripts, including fiction or nonfiction, because most stories, not all, but most stories are definitely going to benefit from a timeline. And they all have to have some sort of outline. This 3D audio set also comes with the forms that has some samples so you can see. I did samples of Nelson Mandela so you could see what goes in the dry timeline, and then where a writer might take a tangent, not a tangent, but something that calls to their heart, and to be able to create a juicy timeline of a very important person's life. And so I include those in that as well. And just the ways that you can put those simple gifts together of both the left brain and the right brain. It will transform your book into something extraordinary and save you hundreds of hours of writing time. You just have to know how. So here's where my 3 audio CDs and downloadable templates are available for you during this special program that we're launching right now. And so when you purchase these, it will provide immediate clarity on your story and awakening both sides of your brain for strength and structure. But you've got to act now. So as Gerda said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Download your templates and begin it now. And if you want to find out more information about our retreats or about myself, please see the websites at the bottom and create a beautiful day. Thank you. Ooh, 42 minutes, it's a little bit too long.